Welcome to Whisperwood Stories. Today, our no sleep story is from user Horror Junkie. Let's begin. My father was a lighthouse operator. His job put us in grave danger. Honey, take Alan inside and lock the doors. They're coming, my father said, staring at the dark clouds swirling overhead as the waves crashed violently against the rocks. My mother nodded, taking me by the hand and ushering me inside the house. Mom rushed me from room to room, ensuring that every door was securely locked before returning to the kitchen. She bit her lip and tapped her foot, staring out the window. Dad would be returning soon. He had to. Mom, why does this happen to us? I asked. She broke her gaze from the door and turned to me. It's the burden we bear, sweetheart. You'll understand someday. Dad still hadn't returned when the downpour came. It was his job to man the lighthouse at night and during storms, but he'd barely had any time to prepare. The weather forecast was wrong. Mom's eyes were glued to the back door. We both stood, still as statues, as the rain relentlessly battered our home. Dad should have been back already. So why wasn't he? The landline phone began to ring without warning, shaking us from our stupor. Mom raced to pick it up. She held it close to her ear with both hands and kept her voice low, but I could see the tension in her frame loosen as she spoke. Okay. Yes. I know what to do. We will. I love you too. Stay safe. She turned to me, placing the phone back on the receiver. Your father is spending the night in the lighthouse. It's too late for him to come back now. They'll be here soon. I nodded as Mom shut the blinds over the back door. She then produced a couple of candles from a cabinet and lit the wicks. Listen, Alan. I know I've told you this before, but you have to stay quiet. If you hear your father's voice out there, do not open the door under any circumstances. It isn't him, okay? Yes, ma'am, I said, accepting a candle from her. Mom smiled at me and gave my arm a light squeeze. What do you say we play some cards to pass the time, huh? The storm will be over before you know it. I gave her a small grin before taking her hand and allowing her to lead me into my room. Mom and I played card games for hours. When bedtime rolled around, the downpour hadn't shown any signs of letting up. Mom read me a story, then sent me off to sleep, and they all lived happily ever after. The end, she whispered, closing the book. She put it back on the nightstand, then kissed my forehead. Good night, sweetie. Mom, I murmured as she stood to leave. Yes, dear. When is Dad coming back? Mom tried to prevent the emotions from showing on her face, but I caught her lip quiver. I'm not sure, but he promised to hurry back as soon as possible, she replied, offering me a warm smile. Now good night, honey. Get some sleep. Good night, I whispered back as she gently closed my bedroom door. I was jolted awake by an enormous lightning strike. My room lit up, and my heart raced like a piston. I tried to roll over and go back to sleep, but I couldn't. I had to pee. I groggily stepped out of bed, my path partially illuminated by the intermittent flashes. I didn't notice until I was on my way back from the bathroom. A soft, almost imperceptible tapping on the back door. I froze, fear swallowing me like a python. The tapping was soft and barely audible over the rain battering the house. I waited for another lightning strike. What I saw sent a shiver running down my spine. In that split second, I was able to make out the unmistakable shape of a person standing on the other side of the door. I told myself to go back to bed, that nothing good could come from looking outside. But then, a question popped into my mind. What if that was Dad? Logically, I knew that it couldn't be. Dad was safe inside the lighthouse. But what if he'd come back and forgotten his key? What if those things had found a way in and forced him into the rain? I had to know. I crept up to the door as silently as possible. I pressed my ear against it, listening. Someone was knocking lightly on the glass and muttering something unintelligible. I couldn't tell if it was Dad's voice. It could be him. In that moment, I threw all reason out the window. With my heart beating in my throat, I lifted one of the blinds ever so slightly. It was Dad. It was actually him. He must have seen me because the next thing I knew, he was calling out.
Alan, oh thank God. It's me, let me in, son. Those beasts, they've overrun the lighthouse. I didn't get a chance to grab my house key before it happened. Alan, they're coming. Please, you have to be quick.
I instinctively reached for the door handle. It was Dad's voice, and it looked like him. So then, why did I find myself hesitating? Mom's words echoed in my head. Do not open the door under any circumstances. I paused. Dad was still calling to me, his voice growing more desperate.
Alan, please, open the door. I can see them. They're getting closer. Alan, you have to let me in.
I couldn't take it anymore. If that was really Dad stranded out in the rain, I had to obey. The second I flipped the deadbolt and twisted the knob, the door swung open. My father's hulking frame stood before me, the storm raging behind him. A lightning flash lit up the room, and a feeling of intense dread settled into my gut. That thing was not my father. I watched, paralyzed with fear as it writhed and squirmed. Its body morphed into something unnatural. A fleshy mass of black tentacles took shape and began to slither toward me. One of the slimy appendages wormed up to my face, and I shrieked in agony. It burned. My skin screamed in pain, as if it were being pressed against hot coals. I had to get out of there. I tried to run, but I couldn't. It had ensnared my feet in its grasp. A sense of insurmountable doom overwhelmed me. This was it. This was how I was going to die. I closed my eyes as tears streamed down my cheeks, waiting for the thing to drag me into the watery depths. Suddenly, a warm glow radiated before me, and the creature released its grip. It let out a frenzied cry, slinking backwards. I turned to find Mom standing there, an ignited torch in her hand. She thrust it into the beast's flesh, driving it in deep. The nauseating stench of burning meat assaulted my nostrils. the thing retreated into the storm. It had almost made it to the sea when it turned back and unleashed a roar, a shrill, guttural scream that pierces my mind even to this day. And then it disappeared amongst the waves. It's been over 60 years since that night. I still don't know what that creature is or why it only comes out during the rain. But I'll never forget my encounter with it. My ruined face won't allow me that luxury. I still live in that house. The lighthouse has long since been automated, but I can't leave this place. It's as if I'm drawn here by some invisible force, just like them. Every time it rains, one of them shows up at my door. I've never made the mistake of opening it again, but now, in my old age, my mind is starting to leave me. And I'm terrified that one day, I'll open that door, and the thing from the sea will drag me down to a watery grave. Thank you for listening to Whisperwood Stories. If you enjoyed, don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe down below. Do you have a story that you'd like me to read here? Consider commenting or sending it to whisperwoodsubmissions@gmail.com. The story in this video was read with the author's permission. Thank you again for listening, and be sure to check out the original Reddit post. Want to support me? Check the link below where you can leave a tip if you wish. And remember, don't let the shadows get too close. Good night.
Alan?